I appreciate you too for being here. Uh, so I wanted to ask, kind of to you, what do you feel is the importance of just music, and that could be to you culturally or just as a broader sense.
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, such a good question. Um, I've been doing a lot of studies personally. I've always loved science and, cool experiments and things like that, which led me back to school. I started learning how to program. I thought it'd be really cool to create software and maybe even a music software. Um, and, that never really came to fruition. I've created some like side project softwares that people have used and I've used for my own personal projects and stuff like an auto video editing software, which I thought is kind of cool, and it definitely works today too. I could definitely share a link with you on that and um, see if you find it maybe interesting to kind of create clips automatically that sync to music. Um, but man, for music, for me, I've found out through my science studies that everything is vibration, and music to me is just kind of like adding to that vibration, that universal sound, that universal hum. I think Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have a lot of different sound bit recordings from different planets that they pass by. When they launched the Voyager sequence of drone probes or whatever, space probes, I guess you could say, back in like the 60s, 68 or like 70 something. I forget exactly when they launched. Maybe it was the 80s. But anyway, they launched these probes and they've been traveling through space. And every planet it passes by, every moon it passes by, it has each planet and moon has a different hum. It has a different sound. And our collective sound on Earth from space has a sound. And I'm sure that we could go on YouTube and find out what that sound sounds like, from outside. And music and energy creation and vibration, like the words that we're making right now, we're talking back and forth, and those those soundscapes, if you will, is adding to that greater hum, that universal hum, that earth hum, which then adds the universal sound vibration that is holding all of our pieces together. Um, and doing so with good intention of like our finding our true sound, our true voice, our true meaning, our true purpose is so important to continue gluing everything together and being a part of our fabric in a strengthening sort of sense. Um, that's really what music means to me. And I feel like I'm discovering and rediscovering what my true path and meaning is. And that's just part of it. And that never ending adventure, you know?
Fantastic answer. So, um, you talked about what music means to you, but what got you started in creating music yourself?
Ooh, yeah. So the first song I ever wrote was it's called "Knocked in the Head," and I'll perform it for you in a second. But it was a kind of like competition that us kids were always like I guess we grew up. I grew up in a kind of like competitive sort of space of like sports and hanging out with neighborhood friends. We're always like, all right, what can we do together? We play out in the woods a lot, and sometimes we build forts. So like we'd split up, like two people would build a fort over here and two people would build a fort over here, and then we'd compare forts and then link them together and maybe have like fort battles. Wow, you're really unlocking a hidden memory right now, man. I haven't thought of fort battles in 30 years. This is crazy. But 20 years, 20 something years. But yeah, we're probably like 5, 6, 7 years old, with sticks and sharpening sticks and kind of being primitive and exploring. And then we'd like play hockey and play basketball together. Then like one day we're like, well, we're hanging out in my buddy's basement. We're like, what should we do? It was like, let's write songs and then perform them to each other and see who has the best song. So then my buddy Eric and I went in a separate room, and Austin and Carter went in their separate room, and we both wrote songs and then came back like 30 minutes later, an hour later, and and perform them and like had this kind of like song, battle, I guess, if you will. And we made Knocked in the Head. And it goes like this. I got knocked in the head. My parents said, you need to go to bed. But when I woke up, I didn't really wake up. I woke up in the heavens, up there, in the heavens, up there. I saw a little angel, angel. I asked her, where's God? She said, go straight, then take a right. Thanks. When I got there, it was shiny and bright. When I opened the castle doors, God was there just doing chores. I asked him, will you bring me back down to earth? Sure. Hold on tight. Thanks for the flight. Wow, it was all a dream. So like, that was a very special moment to me to come up with just a sequence of words that I could memorize, commit to memory, and perform. And that set me off and kind of like a different way. I didn't realize then, it was one thing that like I wrote down and kind of forgot and had to kind of rekindle and remember. And that process for me is something I embodied, whether I knew it or not in the moment, but it changed my life forever. And just knowing that like I can make sense of my experience and in a way that creates positive influence in my life and something that I can now say to you 30, 20 something years later and still brings me joy even singing those words. It is like I know my like 7-year-old self would be so proud of me that I'm still on that path of describing with good intention and hopefully leaving a trail of light and love behind me that other people can be like, yo, that's dope. Like, I want to do something like that, you know?
Got you. That's great. Always hearing kind of like how people started out and things they're making now. But as a independent artist, how do you balance kind of your creative ambitions for the things you want to make versus, the commercialized music industry and trying to fit in that scape?
Yeah, man. That's so it's a great question. I appreciate you asking it because I recently had to well, I actually haven't even told the artist no yet. But there's an artist that reached out to me recently to do something, to do a mix, and I listened to the song. And whenever I'm mixing a song, after mixing some music, and not a ton of music, but just after mixing some music and and being blessed with the music that I was mixing too, and I realizing like, you know, not all music is created equal, and not all like vibration is created equal and with the same intention or even harbors the same energy. Um, and music is energy, and I I am now like dealing with that. Like, oh, like someone is saying, like, I have money for you. Mix this song. It's going to take me 2, 3, 4 hours maybe to mix the song, which is a lot of energy and time that energy I'm letting wash over me and change my biological being. Um, because I truly feel like words have power, like the famous water experiments and rice experiments that I've learned about, how people will cook rice and put it in 3 different jars. And each jar has a scoop of freshly cooked rice, and then the only difference is that you put different words on those rice containers. One says hate, one says love, one says ignore. The ignored one, you just ignore it. The hate one, every day you speak hate into it, and then you close it. Um, or maybe you just don't even open it. You just speak hate into it, and it vibrates through that jar. And then you speak love to the love jar, and it vibrates to that jar every day for 30 days, and you see what happens to those jars. And time and time again, you can see hundreds of people do this experiment. I've looked online and looked at all the different results, and it's just the same result over and over and over again. I haven't done it myself yet, to be totally transparent. That being said, I have a sneaky suspicion that it'll be the same result. And that just goes to show that music has energy, words have energy, and we choose what we resonate with and how we resonate with it. So I'm gonna have to tell this artist I can't mix their music, just because I'm not resonating with it. Maybe I won't use those terms. Maybe I'll say, I'm busy, or maybe I'll say, maybe the next one, but not this one. But whatever the case is, we have to make those decisions for ourselves, what to attach ourselves to energetically. And, that's sometimes we're looking at, monetary value more than we are just the energetic value. And I'm doing my best. I strive to connect myself with energy that fuels me just as much as I'm fueling it, ideally, which is definitely not, it's easier said than done for sure.
Got you. And I relate to that a lot when I used to do cover art a lot, getting like, wow, people want to pay me to represent their song. And over time, I realized sometimes the money's not worth it if the message isn't there. To where it's like, you can act like I enjoyed working with Josh Sadiq. He would paint these vivid pictures. He's like, I want this to happen. And then you listen to the song and you can hear the things he's thinking about, the visualization. You can feel, like you said, the vibrations of it. So then that gives you a picture you can actually paint or draw and then create a cover art. But some other ones, I'm just like, you have no substance here. You named the song one thing and you're not even talking about it, or they're like, you just kind of did this without any feeling or passion behind it, and it didn't hit the same. And I'm like, at a certain point, I'm like, I have to worry about my own energy and my own time. To where, why am I doing this? Why am I creating this just for money? Because at the end of the day, money is not always going to be with you. It's not always something you can leave behind.
Yes, dude. Yes. Oh man, you're hitting on some really good points. And just to add on to that, I totally agree, right? And we have to, as you said, like listen to our energy fields, our true selves, and you know, not like judge them for what they're making, right? Because in core, I feel like all expression is good expression, and maybe in their minds and in their hearts and their heart of hearts, like they're expressing themselves how they feel like they need to express themselves. Just because it doesn't resonate with us doesn't mean it's not meant for them, and it's not a part of their true path. And that's something that I've been. It's always a going back and forth thing, because at the end of the day, my perception of you and your perception of me is really not who we are. I have been adopting this concept of I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings, I'm not the pain that maybe an impact makes me feel, but I am the observer in the process. Um, so creating that separation has been able, I've been able to find more unified existence.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know if that is resonating with you now. But I'd love to know what you think.
Um, for me, I've been so some I'm working on now, coming out probably maybe the end of this month, maybe next month. It's called the Paradox of Perfection. Kind of just looking at the just the aspect of perfection, how we use it, and the good in perfection and also the bad in perfection. That asking the question, is perfection important? But also I've been focusing a lot on just a theory that goes back to earlier philosophy. It was, I think, therefore I am, which to the philosopher, which I need to find his name, he proved to himself the existence of God and himself by using that phrase. But there is a second theory around the time that switched it. It said, I feel, therefore I am. So then the question I've
Uh,
been kind of researching is, are we thinking creatures that feel or feeling creatures that think?
ah, interesting. Interesting. So it's like, oh, you know what that makes me this is gonna be interesting. So you know how little kids, you ever see a little kid and is like walking on the street, it's like taking its first steps. And the little kid is like, oh wow, the world is so beautiful. And then it'll like the little kid will trip and fall, right?
Hmm.
And then it'll like get up maybe and brush itself off. And then have the crying response like way later. It's like they get hit and they're like, wait, what just happened? What do I do? It's like, I think I'm supposed to cry. And it's like, oh, I'm fucking hurting, I'm crying now. But it's like, what did they feel first and then they cry, or did they have to like figure out like how they're supposed to react to the situation? So I always think like, from a little kid's perspective, I feel like we can always learn
Mhm.
from those newborns. Um, so yeah, you know what I mean though. You ever see a
Yeah.
kid do that?
I think when you have no pre assumptions on anything, you learn a lot about different situations. So, thinking about how kids respond to, because I am a teacher and I see it a lot, things they do for the first time, trying something new, seeing how they respond to something difficult. What is their assumption? Is their assumption that, like, okay, I can do anything if I try, or like, I can try that? Or maybe they have a pre experience of, like, oh, I tried something new and it didn't go well, so I won't try it this time.
Mm. Oh yeah, right. It's like the path of least resistance, right? It's like water, really. It's like water always chooses the path of least resistance. It'll go down the open path, and if it's blocked, well, it's not going to go down that path, obviously. And humans are much like that too. Um, and yeah, well, it's interesting because it's like how much resistance is good resistance versus how much resistance ultimately becomes like more of like a negative experience of resistance, and then what really is positive and negative. Is there such thing as positive and negative, or is it just the field of experience? And then really us as creators of our reality, our co-creators in this space, we're the judge of, we're the ones who's actually placing our experience in these boxes of positive and negative, and then kind of defining ourselves by them, right?
Mhm. And it's like, how another thing I'm looking at is like, how do you focus on just feelings without taking away accountability? And
Oh,
looking at that, it's like, he did this because he feels this way. These things happen, so he acted this way. But do you take the account? But can you say that without taking the accountability away for the action? And I was talking to one of my friends. I'm like, all right, going back to philosophy, the phrase is just talking about religion in general. Is some look up, some look within, and some don't look at all. And then
right.
piggybacking from that, it's like, for you, what defines your wrong and right? And depending on your answer, it depends on how you see actions and reactions, and then how you perceive consequences.
Ah, yeah. And I'd say I have been defined in my life by other, like, outside sources telling me whether or not I am right or I'm wrong. So I've let in my life more times than not, and it's always kind of a revolving door. It's kind of like you have to let it in, and then it's like, oh wait, is that who I am? And then like, wait, I don't think so, or maybe it is. And then I have to kind of make that assumption about myself. But it's like, really, you know what I mean when you do something that's like out of bounds, and internally, like, it's out of bounds,
Mm.
and then you get a feeling maybe of like, ooh, like it's coming up, like, I know this is wrong, but I'm doing it anyway. And then you're like, I don't feel right in this space. Like, that's the kind of feeling that I listen to, or like the feeling, kind of going back to like, therefore I feel, therefore I am. It's like, I'm feeling this way for a reason, to then help me steer my moral compass. So it's like a moral internal compass that's guiding me through this feeling of like, whoa, like, are you sure you want to do this? Let's think about this before you react a bit, maybe too heavily, and then potentially damage something that would then need repair. Um, so I've been training myself to listen to that, and then give time and stillness, to deliberate
Mhm.
before then acting. And again, it's easier said than done, right? Always. But I feel like the practice of meditation in my life returning is that um, embodiment of finding stillness before then finding action, and in it's okay to deliberate and think before fully reacting. Um, yeah, yeah, I feel like I got a little off track there, but you know
No, you good.
what?
Um,
Yeah, man.
how
No, it's a
much?
good question, truly.
Yeah. What advice would you give to your younger self that you wish you knew maybe back 10, 15 years ago before you started doing what you're doing now?
Don't get caught up in what other people are telling me that I am, or that I should be, or even could be. It's um, feel feel it out yourself. Let yourself be your guide, because at the end of the day, that's all we really have. Our true path, our true experience is never known by anybody else. That is only known by us as individuals. I can never know exactly how, like, what your truth is, and that's beautiful, and I'll only know mine. And we can talk about the differences, or talk about, try to put it into words and explain or express, um, and that's art. It's like cutting through the space, the medium. This air is similar to water for fishes. We're just breathing air and they're breathing water to obtain oxygen. Um, and yeah, it's just keep going. Like, don't ever let someone else define who you are, because that definition is never going to truly be you. Um, and smile, and every moment you can, if you can find a way to laugh, and with pure joy, and not like, evil spirited, and do it, because in the long run, those moments where you're like laughing and um thriving on, like team work to a singular goal, like those are the moments I feel like you'll remember and internalize the most. So at all costs, like, find unity, and avoid, total separation and ignorance. It'd be a mouthful for my younger self, but if I could boil that down into to lingo that he could understand, then I would.
That's great. The other day, like I said, every once in a while on Fridays, I'll talk to the kids about just resilience in different aspects. We'll play a short video and talk to them. But we had a particular bad day at the school. Not for everybody, but a lot happened in the morning. So I decided to address the classes that I had. And I asked everybody, I said, raise your hand if you have a dream, something you want to be, or aspiration. And almost every kid put their hand up. And I'm like, no one is going to chase your dreams for you. And you always have a choice and a decision to make. And I told them, make sure that decision is your decision and not somebody else's that you did for them.
Mm, hmm.
And
I love that, man. I love that.
obviously, not everybody always listens, but the ones that do, I think that will honestly make a difference. And that would be something I would tell my younger self, to make sure the decisions you make are your decisions and you're not being pressured to choose something that you yourself don't actually want to do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I feel like I needed to hear that, and I also immediately think about how our decisions, as much as we'd like and I love you say that because I totally agree with you. And then as much as we'd like to make our decisions in a vacuum of isolated vacuum, it's at the end of the day, we need we like as individuals that are on our true paths, like we've got to fulfill ourselves and make sure that we take care of ourselves, because if we don't, then how can we ever take care of somebody else as an unfulfilled being that is like trying to like then give advice to another being that's trying to be fulfilled? It's like, or just lend a helping hand. If we can't fully be supported in our own right, then how will our support help somebody else? Like, we won't be able to shoulder any more weights or, lend an arm if we can't even support ourselves with our own arms. You know what I mean?
Mhm. But yeah, I think a couple things I kind of stand by is like a kind of deconstructed version of if you want something done right, do it yourself. Or it's like, well, if you spend so much time doing chasing other people's dreams, you won't have the time to chase your own. Or that this kind of like the idea of what are you willing to sacrifice? If you don't sacrifice for your dreams, then your dreams then become the sacrifice.
Mm. Oos. Yeah. Oos, man. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. I'm in this space now, Micah, like that I so I don't know if you know this, but my wife is pregnant. We're having a baby. I'm gonna be a dad in like 8 months.
Congratulations.
Which is, thanks, man. Thank you, man. It's a wild, it's so cool. It's so cool. And I've just been thinking a lot about, the environment that I want my child to be raised in, and what that means, you know, for my decisions that I'm making in my life, how it's important. Now my vision is changing, right? It's changing from my environment that I'm in, of like, now I have this baby, I have a wife, and their happiness and joy are so important to me and so important to the baby. Um, and also my happiness and joy is so important to the baby and important to me in the same right. It's like, I have different skills that I could potentially get a better paying job if I dug deeper into those skills, and maybe get a job at like Navy Federal, for instance. Not saying that like working at Navy Federal is a bad idea, but just for me, I don't know if I want my kid to be raised in an environment where I'm not pursuing my greatest vision, my greatest version of myself, my greatest dream. And part of that is being my own business owner, and maybe doing weird jobs like Walmart deliveries where I'm at now, or getting paid a little bit of money every week to perform music gigs with my own original music. But it's like, I want my son or my daughter, or my undefined being to be seeing that. I want them to see the struggle it takes to go after exactly what I want. And the struggle is like really not a struggle. It's like, that's life. Like, that's beauty and that's love and it's dedication, it's commitment to like go for things that are outside the realm of like the normal realm of, the more kind of defined do what you're told path. And I don't want them to have that like do what you're told energy thrusted upon them to define them without them being able to find themselves, and like take like almost taking away their freedom. And or I don't want to like work this job where I'm not happy truly, and then I know he's going to feel that I'm not happy because that's energy, and then I turn around and say, don't do what I do what I say. It's like, who can actually resonate with that? I don't think anybody truly can. I think we can all learn from that. But then the lesson would be just to follow your dream, even if it makes you broke, even if you're struggling, even if you file for bankruptcy multiple times, like, or whatever the case is, that I might have to even go through. It's like the truth of the matter is, like, we're on a magical planet in my eyes, and magical universe, and we're here for reasons that we're always discovering, self-discovering, and to not go through that self-discovery um, as soon as possible and defining ourselves anew is like an equal. I want to take my kid everywhere I go and show them the ropes, and I feel like I wasn't given that same respect in some ways. In some ways I was, and we all have our different privileges and our different struggles that we all go through as individuals. um, I just want an environment that naturally encourages to be mutually respected and just loved from day one. You know.
Mhm. Honestly, that is what I think, a shift in mindset that would do a lot of people so much good, just in general. Because I see a lot of people that are, I think, I'll say, just from working in education, I feel like there has been a shift more towards that. And I think they see it as a bad thing
So good here.
because there's a difference. Because, like, for example, respect in general, oftentimes we were taught respect for authority. That, to some extent,
Yeah.
has gone away. A lot of these kids won't respect you just for the fact that you're older than them, or that, you have a title. You have to show them, you have to give them a reason to respect them. And the thing I tell them every day, well, not every day, but I repeat this a lot, is like, y'all understand what it means. Like, y'all understand that respect goes both ways. You understand what how a student shows a teacher respect. But then I asked them, how does a teacher show a student respect? And I learned this from a
Mm,
coach at a basketball camp. The answer was accountability. So I tell them all the time, I'm like, and it
yes.
also puts discipline in a positive light. Like, I'm not telling you what to do right now because I want you to do what you're told. I'm telling you because I'm going to keep you accountable, because I'm showing you respect. And with that shift in
Mm.
mentality, discipline or consequences are received in a much different light, to where, like, I'm doing this
Ooh,
for you, not because the other way. And there's an actual understanding of, like, I'm showing you respect, so you have a reason to show me respect.
so beautiful, dude. It's so good. It's yes, I played some team sports in my day as well, and making that shift through one of the most legendary coaches ever, Coach Cal Cochran at PHS back in, I guess, 06, 7, 8. Um, just like was like another, like a father figure to me for sure, and taught me so much in that respect of, like passing the ball and understanding that, like, passing the ball and your teammates scoring feels just as good, or sometimes better than when I score, because it's like, dude, we did that together, man. Like, we went through the court and we passed like 4 or 5 times, and not just because we need to pass 4 or 5 times, but maybe you only passed once because that was the quickest way to the goal. But when we did it together and did it as a team and mutual respect and love, it's just like there's no better feeling than that. And knowing that, like, I, the deal is during practice, sometimes coach will call you out and shoot free throws. And if you make the free throw, then you just go back to the 5-on-5 game. But if you miss the free throw, you're running wind sprints, baby. You know what I mean? And that was part of it. And we're all there together, working through it together. But it was like that accountability that you're talking about, that, like, discipline of accountability, commitment to accountability, that really just did a number on my mind, man. And in an early stage. And yeah, I totally resonate with that, Micah.
Yeah, I think I said this before I even started coaching, but I felt like sports nowadays is some of the only accountability the kids get consistently. Because looking at just the statistics I can see on my end, on the teacher side of thing, a lot of these kids don't have consistent guardians. I would say it could even be as high as 20% of kids that show up. And sadly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was higher, that they just don't have accountability. They're raising themselves and they're trying to, figure it out before they should have to. And sometimes sports, some other things show them like, hey, your actions have consequences. Not all consequences are bad. They're just kind of results. And them understanding that like, hey, it's not just about you and having a team mentality. I feel like in general, if we can get that culture wide, which sounds like an impossible task, I feel like the world would be a better place. But some I always say is the biggest dreams sometimes take more than a lifetime to achieve.
Mm, oof. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, getting into second and third lives, reincarnations to choose this planet experience again to learn what we just didn't get the first time around. And I totally feel you, man. It's one of those things that makes me. It just reminds me of what it means to be a parent and to start that in the home space if you have the privilege of having your parents present with you. And if you don't, like, how do you do that for yourself? And in some ways you learn things a lot quicker than someone like myself who did have the privilege of parents growing up and kind of guiding the path. um you know the world is always changing. The idea of what's the best, quote unquote, best thing to do is always kind of, I guess, shifting around. But for me personally, I think it's just so important for me now in this space. Over the past 6 months, man, I've lost 30 pounds almost. I'm like in the best shape I've ever been since high school, back in like basketball playing days. And even stronger now. And like nutrition is just so key, and understanding how to feed yourself. Like, teach a man to fish and you'll feed him for life. Make a meal for a day, he eats just for the moment. And um like, I'm gonna strive to embody that as often as I can in my life now. And even more so, I guess, when I have a kid in front of me that's watching and absorbing everything that I'm doing. Um and you know kind of goes back to the environment too. Is like, okay, like, do I want to be hustling around, all of these different gigs, just trying to like skate by and like, showing him like this is what life is? Or do I need to like move to another country, like maybe go to Honduras where Cece is from, and go back to the island and of Roatan, and show him a different side of life that I'm not even too experienced with. I lived there for like a month, and well, a few months um, in Honduras and the city, and then the island, and then in Oaxaca, Mexico, and like that was a pretty short part of my life compared to the other 32 years that I've lived on the planet. And but it was just such a shock to me, in such a positive way, that like I got to you see like how you can kind of just live differently, and live slower, and not worry about different things, or just the things are just not even in your vision. It's like, I don't have a car, I just walked everywhere, and it's a block away from the water, and I was paying $500 a month for rent. And you still got to make a little bit of money, but it's just so much easier to do. There's no taxes, there's no health insurance, there's no, like, people never had health insurance, never paid for it, didn't have to worry about it, because more or less they're living a pretty healthy and safe life just by living in the environment. So yeah, man, I've just been thinking a lot about that, and how I'd like to get back in a place, or just get to a place, not even going back. I've never really experienced it. I'd like to grow my own vegetables and be a part of like agriculture in its purest form. Like, groceries so expensive, man, and there's so many things. Like, my buddy made some chocolate. He's like, dude, I want you to take some of these chocolates to your wife. I made, from coconut oil, cocoa powder, some toffee, some pretzels. And he's like, dude, all these chocolates cost me maybe 30 cents to make. And you could buy these chocolates in the store for about $20. You know what I mean? It's like, crazy that, like, why don't we all just make our own chocolates whenever we want chocolate? It takes 30 minutes. Well, nobody really knows. And why don't we know it? Well, we weren't raised up in the environment to teach us these things. And I want to, I want my kid to be like raised in that environment, man, like so empowered to be like, bro, you built this yourself. You did this yourself. You created. You are a creator. You are a god. And um, I want you to embody that.
Yeah. Um, any closing words for this interview podcast, this conversation? Anything
Man,
you would like to enlighten the people with or just inspire?
man. Um, I just I go back to those that self-talk, the words that we tell ourselves that nobody else hears is I guess represented maybe as a shadow self or whatever that the internal energy that we harbor is what I find life to ultimately be. The more I harbor, whatever I harbor, the more is what I that's what I experience. And um and um and yeah, man, we got this. We're all doing it together. We're here, um, just crushing life together, man. And um, you know, reach out and help somebody when you see they're in need, if it resonates with you. And I'll strive to do the same. And reach out if anyone's watching this and they want to reach out and just have a conversation with me. You please do it, absolutely, or just hit it down in the comments, and I will, of course, respond back. And I just love conversation, and I don't want to ever shut off anybody's, varying opinions or thoughts or anything. So I'm open to everything, and I think it's just really important to be open and loving um, and gratitude, man. Gratitude, I find like is one of like a universal language similar to music. It's like everyone understands gratitude, thankfulness and like appreciation. And Micah, man, dude, I appreciate you so much, like so much in this moment. And thank you for bringing positive light into my life when I need it the most, which is right now. And guidance. You you are a shaman in many ways in that respect. And thank you for ushering in growth for me too in this moment, man.
You're more than welcome. Last thing, where can people find you? They want to listen to your music, work with you, or just, you know, experience life with you.
Definitely, man. Well, Instagram I feel like is probably the main go-to source, but also email is cool too. I'll refrain from giving my phone number, but definitely email or Instagram. But then also, I'll definitely give it to you if you reach out, and we can have a conversation on Discord as well, or a phone call for sure. But Instagram is PlaySol. That's PLAYSOL, and my email is playinthesunwithme@gmail.com. So either one of those is a okay with me.
Definitely. And I'll definitely put those in the description. Well, Cody, thank you for being here. Thank you for this conversation. And as always, keep it quintessential.
Thank you, Micah. I will, man.